Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Comics Evolve, where we discuss all things around comics media culture with your hosts, Andy, Jarian, and Alex.
Welcome to Comics Evolve, myself, Jarian Gibson.
And I'm Alex Straub.
And we are back to wrap up Agatha All Along. Today we're going to talk about episodes 7, 8, and 9. But before we get started today, how you doing, Alex?
I'm doing pretty good, was running a little bit late, just managed to make it in here just in time right before we started. So it's been a pretty good weekend. I know tomorrow's Veterans Day, so, I don't know about yourself, but I'll have tomorrow off. So that'll be a nice little 3-day weekend that we're having, so.
Yes, same here. My company, they switched from President's Day to Veterans Day from feedback, so we have Veterans Day off too. And so, thank you to all of our vets out there. Of course, I come from a military family as well. I have a sibling that was just retired. My dad was military, and plenty of uncles and aunts and cousins in the military as well. So.
Yeah, I got Army and Air Force on both sides of mine, and then my extended family was in a few other things, but like the Navy and stuff. So I think we even might have like a Marine in my family as well. But yeah, Air Force and Army. So
Air Force and Navy here mostly. So
very nice, very nice.
Yeah. And you asked me before about Nebraska. That's how I ended up in Nebraska. So.
Oh, that makes sense now. Okay,
Yep.
All right, that makes sense. Okay.
Yep. So yeah, have you watched anything new or seen anything? So
I will tell you this: I rewatched Venom this weekend, the first one, and I went and saw Last Dance, and I've got to rewatch that second Venom movie. I have rewatched that movie probably 2 or 3 times, and every time I watch it, I fall asleep. Every time, I don't know why, but yeah, I mean, like I just forgot how much I enjoyed that first Venom movie. Like it was quite good, and yeah, it's a fun watch. It's fun to go back and rewatch it. But what was weird was I watched the first one on Disney, but I couldn't find the second one on Disney. So I don't know if that's like it's maybe on another streaming service. Maybe there's some kind of contractual thing there or what. But yeah, I thought that was a little odd. But it was nice to get to go back and see that. And man, I will say this. What is the dude's name? Plays Eddie Brock. I cannot think of it off.
Tom Hardy.
Yes, thank you, Tom Hardy. Mm-hmm. He looks so much older in that third Venom movie than he does in that first one. He looks so much younger in that first movie. So I don't know how far apart they were. I'd probably say, like 8 years apart, the first and the third film or something?
Yeah,
so,
I would say about around that time. Yeah, it's definitely been several years.
Yeah, so I was very shocked by how much younger he looked in that first Venom movie going into, this third movie that we just saw in theaters, which I will say was quite good. I know we haven't really done a review or talked about it or anything, but I will just go ahead and say no spoilers, but I enjoyed that movie. It was very fun, good movie. The Last Dance for Venom.
Yep.
So, yeah, quite enjoyed that movie as well. So.
Yeah, my son enjoyed it also, and he was really cool to see all the different symbiotes in there and that kind of stuff, and he's just sitting there I'm not going to give spoilers to what there is multiple symbiotes in the film, which I think everyone can probably figure that one out, but just going back and forth and naming him and the excitement. Yeah, we probably should do a Last Dance recap here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to figure out my lights real quick. For some reason, my lights don't want to come on. The ones I have on when I'm streaming. So I don't know what's going on. So I'm just trying one more thing here before I give up on it.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, that's just weird that my lights don't want to be found right now.
Have you watched anything new recently?
Other than The Last Dance, that's not. I don't think anything else I've seen really new. I know, like my son and I rewatched Transformers, the movie, the original one.
Okay.
And we're going to watch Transformers 1 here now that it's on streaming, I think.
The original one have Shia LaBeouf, right?
No, I'm talking about the cartoon.
Oh, the cartoon.
Yeah, the original cartoon. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're gonna watch that one at some point. But we haven't been able to watch it yet. We were going to watch it last night, but he ended up staying the night at my mother-in-law's house because his cousins were there. Mm-hmm. So we haven't watched it yet. But yeah, looking forward to watching that. So yeah, Friday nights we ended up rewatching the original movie before we watched Transformers 1. We have some chat here already. RMC's with us. Hey, RMC. Afternoon, fellas. Since the game is over and the race still has a ways to go, cast into the big screen. Podcast even better that way. Good. Thanks for watching that on the big screen. And then Jimmy Cloud as well. She says, right, such a huge age difference. Oh, this is about, I'll put this one on the screen here.
Hardy.
Yeah, about Tom Hardy. Yeah, such a huge age difference, but I think cinematically, it's only been a few months since the first Venom. Yeah, that's a good question with the timeline as far as cinematically. I know it's like, it seems like it was right after Let There Be Carnage, and then try to figure out what was the delta between the first Venom and Let There Be Carnage.
So I could be wrong, but in that third movie, there was a character that I think was from the second Venom movie that was in it that is like a leftover from that movie. But I never watched that movie all the way through because, like I said, I always fall asleep. So it seemed like that one picked up on like a little bit of a thread that they left in that second movie.
The cop, right?
Yeah, I think so.
That had toxin. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I was like, huh. So like I picked up on that. I knew that was probably from like the second movie, but that makes me believe it's got to be close in time frame.
Yep.
Right? Like I mean, it's got to be. And I know in the first Venom movie, there's like a 6-month jump from where he's with Annie, and then he like does that with a Life Foundation, gets in trouble, loses his job.
Yep.
Makes her lose her job as a lawyer, and then there's like a 6-month jump like later on until he gets Venom. So I'm sure that it's got to be within at least a few years at least, right?
Yeah.
So like who knows, but I won't spoil too much about the third Venom movie, but I rarely ever feel like I'm quite surprised when I go see a movie, and I was really quite surprised by how much it's just a fun film.
Yeah,
it's
it was really enjoyable. Yeah.
I didn't feel like I didn't have much of an expectation going in, and I was quite happy when I left. So
I felt for a trilogy, they stuck the landing with that trilogy.
Oh yeah.
It'll be interesting to see where they go next with Venom, that character, and Tom Hardy, especially with things they kind of left open at the end. But we'll stop here because we'll keep talking about it. So how about this? Next Sunday, Venom 3 recap, review. Definitely. All right. So let's get into Agatha All Along. And this seems like it's kind of interesting, too. A lot of these episodes, they kind of do a lot of the witches on the road, their backstory. And episode 7 seemed like it was Lydia's backstory, kind of doing flashbacks and that kind of stuff. And some of the things that she did, waking up, falling through the empty space, that kind of stuff. And then the whole thing with the tarot card. So what do you think about this episode?
So there were, I never realized this, but there were a few parts earlier on in a few other episodes where obviously like the scene where they first meet her in her house, where it seems like she has like a weird kind of, it's almost like a seizure or something, it seems like something's wrong. And obviously they related that back to know that like, that was like her, I guess, seeing the past and the future or whatever, because she seems to live her life like out of order, basically, as they mentioned in this episode. And I thought it was really cool how they did that because, it was always like her seeing things and never being able to really put everything fully together. And, we had that episode where Billy had thrown her and Jennifer Kale into like off the road, right?
Yep, they're like in the mud and buried and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so they get sucked down into, I guess you would call it like the tunnels underneath the road. And she basically, I was so confused at first when they had that moment where Jennifer Kale goes, yeah, you've already told me this. Like, what are you talking about? Because she's forgetting what she's saying and everything like that.
Yeah, because that one moment, too, when she's like, I'm going to tell you now about all this stuff before I forget it again, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's like, how do you know about the books in the tunnel? And she's like, you told me about the books and everything like that. And I thought that for her character, the way that they did her character with that, I liked how they did like a little focus on each one of these characters throughout the show. I really liked that. I've got a thing for witches. Like American Horror Story season 3 was called Coven. I love that episode, or I love that season. And a lot of the episodes in that kind of remind me a little bit of this show, because whenever they bring a new Supreme in American Horror Story, they have to do the 7 Wonders test. And it's very much like the trials. It reminds me of the trials on the Witches Road. They're not the same, of course, but there are a few things that just remind me of that. But so going into this, like, I wasn't crazy when I heard that it was going to be a musical, but like, you know, kind of seeing how there was really not much of a musical after like them summoning the road, I was quite happy, you know. So like, even in all the flashbacks and everything like that, there wasn't really anything too crazy. So kind of going back to her character, I thought one of the most interesting things about that episode was just, you know, how it ended, and I won't spoil that just yet. We'll get into it, but just the development of her character and just kind of her acceptance of, you know, she basically has to die. Like, and she knew that, and she had foreseen her death. She had seen herself falling and everything like that. And yeah, I thought that was cool. Like how she rounded out that episode when they were trapped in the room with the swords falling and everything. Man, that was so cool. And what was weird was Agatha seemed like she, you know, didn't really know anything about tarot or anything like that, which, I mean, not shocking. It didn't really seem like she had ever cared to, but...
Or maybe it's the time period she's from, too, that wasn't a thing. So...
Yeah, so... and, you know, we'll talk about this more, but it was definitely one of those things where, you know, each challenge was definitely acclimated towards a certain witch of a certain skill, you know, potions, like tarot, like things like that. So, you know, we see at the beginning of this episode, Billy and Agatha try and do that themselves, and they fail horribly, you know, and it takes Lilia to come, and she's the one that, you know, kind of keeps them from all dying, basically. And I was really shocked. I loved that episode where the ceiling was coming down and the swords were falling out of the ceiling. I thought that was so cool. And it was so funny. I was in a store, and you know how they show the magician card in that episode for Billy? I was in a store, and I was in a museum recently, and they had some tarot cards in a museum, and the one they showed was the magician. And I was like, that is so funny. Like, I literally was like, that's straight out of Agatha all along. But
since you like witches and stuff, you ever watch True Blood? That was on HBO.
True Blood.
So True Blood is a pretty interesting series. It's very graphic. It's very adult oriented, you know. But the main premise. Right? Yeah, the main premise of the show is werewolves, but they have, vampires. But there's a season with werewolves, and there's a main werewolf in there you see throughout the seasons after that. They have witches season 2 as well, where it's witches versus vampires. So that's also a pretty cool season. And they also have some other magical elements into it as well. So, you know, might want to watch it one time. It just reminded me of it because it was on HBO during the daytime, you know, during the reruns of it, you know, and I used to always watch that show. I kind of wish it didn't end. And they have some pretty cool actors in there, too, because they had Skarsgård in there. They had the actress that played Rogue in the original X-Men movies. Anna Paquin, she's the main star of it. Skarsgård's a pretty big star in there. Yeah. Wow. And then you have Deborah Ann Waller. Daredevil.
Okay, yeah.
She's in it as well, and so there's other people in there also. But yeah, it's a pretty cool series to go through if you ever get a chance to watch it. But anyways, sorry.
I've always heard great things about it.
Yeah, back to Agatha though. Then you kind of notice they have the castle, the Yellow Brick Road. You know, Agatha saying that the Wicked Witch was modeled after her.
Yeah, that's so funny. I liked her costume too. Yeah. Like, I thought it was so funny. I got such a kick out of that, and Billy's Maleficent costume as well. Who was Lilia supposed to be? Like, was
she Glinda the Good Witch? Because the way the dress was, it looked like she was Glinda the Good Witch. I think
I wasn't 100% positive, so I was like trying to figure it out.
Here you go. RMC agrees about True Blood. He goes, True Blood was awesome. Yeah, definitely watch it. I'll let you know now. There is a lot of graphic stuff in that show, though, just so you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so they did all that one. Jennifer Kale, she was the lion, or no? Because she was just like with a hood on and that kind of stuff. I couldn't figure out who Jennifer Kale was.
Yeah.
She wasn't like one of the other characters because she had the whole hood on and she had the dreads.
Yeah, I thought she was like Scarecrow or something.
Okay, maybe she was Scarecrow.
I could be wrong or something like that, you know. But yeah, I couldn't figure out who she was either. I could be very, very wrong about that. So, but that was just my thoughts on it.
No, she's the evil queen. Jen was. My notes. Okay. Yep, she's the evil queen. And interesting too, they had a little conversation about, is the Scarlet Witch dead? And then Agatha's like, yes, no, I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So yeah, thank you, Jamie. Yep, she's from Snow White. Yes. But yeah, so that was interesting too, how they did that and how they tied things back in different errors. And then we talked about the magician card. They also had other things too. So the Queen of Cups, there was like the Three of Pentacles missing, the Knight of Wands, the High Priestess was the Path of Head. The obstacles were the Three of the Swords. The Windfall was a Tower reversed, and Destination was Death. And this is where you get the big reveal that Rio is basically death.
Yeah.
And it seems like in that room, Lilia saves the day, lets them out, but then she takes on the Salem 7, it looked like, at that time. And then she flips the card. That was pretty cool when she flipped that card in the room, turned upside down. She killed them all, and then eventually she was sacrificing herself. So
yeah, and I thought that was a really cool kind of ending to that episode when she basically traps the Salem 7 in there with her, and she basically waits for them, lures them in, and then lets them all die with her, kind of type of thing. I kind of felt like, obviously, throughout this I'll call it a season of this show, they weren't the main villains, right? They were just kind of there, kind of just expediting the story along. Like, we have to move quicker because they're on our tail, kind of type of thing. But to kind of get them off the board, if you will, I thought that was such a cool way that she did that. She just kind of shoved them through, shut the doors, let them all come in as animals, and then, kind of talked a little bit of trash, and then just let them all die with her. And that scene where she always knew that she was falling to her death, but she could never figure it out, and she realizes that it's there. I thought that was a very cool kind of thing that they did with the writing in this, and I liked how they had her character kind of bouncing around in time in previous episodes, where she's it turns out where she was making no sense in a previous episode, it relates to this and everything. I thought it was awesome. I really liked how they did that. So
yeah, and this is how the story's been flowing too as well. It doesn't really feel like there's been a filler episode like some seasons have been. Now that I think about it, of these shows, it kind of feel like this was a steady path the entire time going through this series. So then we go to episode 8, where basically we're seeing Death, the whole conversation between Agatha and Death. I'm sorry, Alice wakes up seeing her, and basically says, you died protecting someone.
Yeah,
type of
you're
thing.
a protection witch. That's what you died, what you're supposed to do, and that was kind of a sad moment in that show, seeing that happen. And, Death was creepy in this. They did a really good job with her costume, I thought. I liked how they made her appear, especially in the later episodes with the skull kind of jaw and everything.
Yeah, it almost had a Dia de los Muertos type of look to her when they put the paint on and that kind of stuff, just to celebrate that.
Yeah, so I really like that. I really enjoyed how they made her look, and obviously, I thought one of the big standouts of this episode was just the plot, how it set up the next episode, because I thought this show, and I'll just go ahead and say it, has one of the strongest finishes I thought of a Marvel show that I've seen. And like you said, there's no filler. I thought that there was going to be a filler episode, or at least one that wasn't as important. But, obviously, I think that this show did a really good job of kind of shining the light on the backstory of each one of these witches, and kind of showing what happened to them in the past, what kind of led them to where they were, and how we kind of got to this point. So episode 7 was fantastic. Love that.
Yeah, because they kind of show Jennifer, it's kind of the spotlight of Jennifer Kale at the first part of the episode. When they're in that room. And RMC's saying here too, he's saying that Aubrey was perfect as Death, and hopefully we do see more of her in the MCU, especially when they get down to doing other things, or even they stay on the dark side, maybe of the MCU, they keep her in that part of it. But this was definitely Jennifer Kale's first part of the episode. It seemed like, with her heartbroken over Lilia sacrificing herself, the door disappearing, and then she finally realizes that, I lost my powers for 100 years because of you, talking to Agatha, and then she did that whole sequence with the hair and that kind of stuff, and then it kind of felt like she kind of, at that point, she's off the road now. She where'd she go? It's her journey on the road was finished, so she went back to wherever, which I'm interested to see what they do with Jennifer Kale with her ties into Midnight Suns, to Man
Ghost
Thing, to that kind of
Rider,
stuff. Yeah,
maybe,
we're Ghost Rider as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
so she's not just like one of those background characters. She has some pretty strong connections in Marvel. So
Yeah. And I mean, do we want to go ahead and jump into episode 8 and go ahead and
was there anything else about it? Do you know about episode 7 or episode 8? I mean, in this one.
for episode 8?
Yeah, because we're there now.
Yeah, so episode 8, I will say this. I thought it was really interesting how they wake up like in a morgue almost, right? Like, they kind of have that moment where they kind of get back to their shoes and they realize that the Witch's Road is a circle and that doesn't make any sense. So Billy puts his shoes on and they all wake up in the morgue. And of course, they all wake up with some special effect of theirs. Like Billy's got his spell book. Agatha's got her brooch. I don't think Jennifer Kale had anything.
No, because she doesn't have any powers.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point.
I forgot too. Last episode too, they found that Billy can read minds as well. Last episode. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. So, they have that moment where they're basically like trying to figure out what to do in that room and everything, and they do that little ritual, or Jennifer Kale does, where she gets herself unbound by Agatha. And, obviously she disappears once that happens and she's gone and everything like that. And then it's Billy and Agatha. And one of the most interesting things that I thought about in this episode, and honestly the whole show, was how Agatha, she's kind of become a little bit closer to Billy, right?
Yep.
Like she says in an earlier episode, like, don't ever let them tell you that you're too powerful, or, don't ever let them like try and tell you that you shouldn't be doing this or whatever, you're quite powerful. And it's because what we learn in the next episode, the 9th episode, which we'll talk about it in a little bit, there's a reason for that, because Agatha's known something all along. And obviously Lilia put the sigil on Billy Kaplan and everything up to this point. But Billy has at this point that moment where he's like, I'm trying to find Tommy. That's the point. And Agatha helps him like find Tommy. And I love that scene where they're sitting there like with their legs crossed and he's like looking for Tommy out there, and he's trying to find like a body for Tommy. And he says to her, am I killing this boy, or am I like, or is he dying, like whatever. And so they do leave the breadcrumbs that a boy drowns and Tommy ends up in his body. And that I thought was an awesome little thing that they did in this episode, because right after that happens, Billy's gone.
Yeah,
right?
because his whole thing on the road was to find his brother.
Yep.
And it was interesting too that they showed that little flash of that kid drowning. Mm-hmm. That, and he's like, they tricked him, that kind of stuff too. And then the whole
wrong.
And the whole thing with the flashback of the moments of Wanda and Vision telling the boys bye at the end of WandaVision as well. Yeah. So,
great episode too. I thought that what they did with Agatha, where she opens up her brooch and she finds a little seed of the dandelion and buries it right as like the last light's about to go out, and it grows, and then she manages to escape. I thought that was really, really cool. And, going into episode 9, I thought episode 8 wasn't really like a filler episode, but you could tell something was coming really big in episode 9.
Yep.
And, at the end of episode 8, obviously they finished the road, but then, you're like, where's Billy? Where did everybody go? So, did you have any more thoughts on episode 8? Or
well, so at the end we see him in the whole Wiccan outfit, and on the cape, he has his mother's runes, he has his father's symbol, and the X-Men logo sewn into his cape. So that was pretty cool right there. And then he saved her from death. Yep. And then Agatha basically sacrificed herself for Billy, and he says, she dies turned into flowers, but he gets the brooch. Yeah. And then he finds out that he creates the Witch's Road. Yep. And that was kind of the end of the episode, if I remember correctly. So,
and I thought that was really cool, how they did that, because it's like, obviously Agatha, she like throughout the episodes, like showed that she had no knowledge whatsoever of what was happening. Like she was unfamiliar with this thing, and we obviously find out that's because he created the Witch's Road.
Yep.
So, like, she had never been in this situation before. So everything that she had told before was a lie, because her trick was she tricks, people into doing the Witch's Road thing, which we'll get into in the 9th episode. But, for this, like, obviously that's why she has that conversation about, you're so powerful, Billy, like, don't ever let them tell you, because she knew it wasn't her doing that, right? Yep. Like, it wasn't anybody else. And, that's why, like, I think at the end of that episode, kind of looking at it, where they have, like, the fight with death and everything like that, even Agatha's like, we can't beat death, right? Like, it's one of those things where it's inevitable. We will lose at some point. And Billy's got that really cool scene where he gives Agatha some of his power, and you almost think that Agatha's going to drain him dry, and, she ends up not doing it. It seems like they have a little bit of she has a little bit of attachment to Billy.
Yep, they're like a bond. They bonded, basically.
And when Billy flies into that greenhouse, I laugh so hard at this line. I don't know why. But when Billy flies into that greenhouse, you see, like, the fighting, like, the colors and everything, like the green and the purple or whatever between Agatha and Death or whatever happening outside. And Plaza has this great line where she says, "Man, power really looks good on you." And I heard that, I busted out laughing. I thought it was so funny. But yeah, just that scene, because, like, we obviously know that Death wanted to take Billy because she claimed that Billy himself was basically creating some sort of imbalance.
Yep.
And she says that, like, she needs to take him, but she needs him to submit himself. And in an earlier episode, Agatha says, "Why is that? Is it because if he dies, he'll be reincarnated again?" So there seems to be something going on
special there. Yeah.
So there's something that Death can't, grab him if she wants to. So, obviously
she can't grab him unless he's willing, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Until he, like, accepts it, basically. Yep. So, obviously he brings Tommy back. I'm guessing that's going to also add to this imbalance. But, obviously Death wants Agatha. She, finally gets Agatha when Agatha dies, I guess, in a way. And
dies. Quotes, air quotes.
Dies, yeah. And and then we see the flowers and everything like that. And they had a really funny shot there too in that episode where, like, Death is sitting on the house and the lightning and everything's going in the background, and you see, like, I think it was Herb who lived across the street, who's, like, outside looking up at the sky.
Yeah, oh no, here we go again.
Yeah, oh no, here we go, yeah. So, like, I got a good kick out of that. I was like, those poor people, man, those poor people. And I mean, I thought it was really interesting. I am curious, though, after this episode, if Billy, I would assume, based on what we saw, that Billy probably isn't going to be meeting Tommy in Eastview. I feel like he's probably somewhere else in the world, and we're just going to have to see where that turns out to be, because I don't think he's going to be in Eastview. Like,
no, Billy. I wonder if he's going to be the Vision series. Feels like the spot for Tommy.
Yeah, maybe he gets his powers, goes to find Vision or something, runs around the world until he finds Vision or something. But yeah, episode 8, fantastic, great episode.
And they could have ended the show right there.
They could have.
I heard mixed thoughts about do we really need episode 9? Could 8 have been done and the story's been fine? But I think there's some cool things in 9 to kind of help explain things, because we've had this Nicholas Scratch stuff going on since WandaVision, and this could have been an earlier episode possibly if they wanted to, but I think it was right at that time to kind of give us that. And then from the chat here, Jimmy asked, is Billy always the one who finds every clue? Yes, I believe he was during this whole thing.
And I think that's related to, can we go ahead and jump into episode 9?
In 1 second, let's finish this real quick. And then, so considering she sacrificed herself for him, which was totally out of character for her, why did Billy try to cast a banishment spell on her to be rid of her? That's a good question.
Well, I mean, that kind of jumps into episode 9.
When she turned into a ghost, yeah. So let's get into episode 9. So do you want to finish your thought now about finding the clues that you're going to get onto?
Yeah, so I was just going to say, obviously we learned in this episode that the Witch's Road in episode 9 was a scam, right?
Yep.
Through the centuries, through the decades. Agatha would always lure witches of different kinds. And I think the trick there, right, was you got to have a potions witch, you got to have a green witch, you got to have like a protection witch, you got to have all these different ones because Agatha wanted all their powers. She wanted different power from different people. She just wanted to absorb it all. So, like, she absorbs their power. She tricks them into attacking her, like she tried to do in the first step, or in the I guess
WandaVision.
Second episode.
Okay.
Where she basically tries to get them to summon the road when the Salem 7 are coming, and Agatha's like, oh, like y'all can't do anything, and they're like, you just want us to attack you, and she's like, no, like, I thought that was really funny, and they look down and they see the Witch's Road, and they're like, oh shoot, like, but obviously episode 9 shows that she created the Witch's Road story, right? Her and her son, and it was a ploy for her to get power, and through the centuries, she would always trick witches into summoning the road and then trick them into attacking her by calling them weak. And then they would attack her and she would take their power and kill them. Yeah,
because we started basically back in 1750 where we see her give birth to Nicholas Scratch. There we see death visiting her.
Yep.
Offers her time for her son, but doesn't, say how much time she'll get. Mm-hmm. They give birth. She gives birth. They wander through the woods. And she drains witch's power.
Yeah. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting about that was when they have her son and she's in the woods and she has the child and everything like that. Obviously she sees death and she begs for a longer amount of time with death, right?
Yep.
So she never knows when exactly it's going to happen. But that moment where Nicholas Scratch dies, where like she's asleep and death comes and takes him in his sleep because he's sick.
Yep.
That was a very sad moment. Like,
yes.
That was pitiful. And then she wakes up and she finds his dead body and then she starts like freaking out and everything like that. And that kind of goes back to, earlier, like Jennifer Kale had said in the show, oh, she traded her own son for the Darkhold. Obviously we knew that didn't happen, but like at the same time, you're like, what did she do with her son?
Yeah.
And it turns out the least craziest thing happened for her to her son. He just got sick and died. Right?
Yeah.
Like, it was nothing to do with Agatha. So I really liked that they did this episode for that because it not only explained the origin of the Witch's Road, but also explained
it filled that,
the mystery of what happened to her son and who her son was and why, like, she's had the rabbit named Senor Scratchy and everything like that, and all of that. So I think kind of like looking back, we needed that episode because I think episode 9 kind of gave us some exposition that I think a lot of people wanted all the way back to WandaVision.
But do you think they should have put episode 9? They should have switched the order of 9 and 8, maybe.
Maybe, but I mean, so I kind of liked it though. I mean, like I know we go to that typical, like we always want a big, CGI battle in the final episode kind of type of deal with stuff like this. Kind of like how WandaVision was, right? Like her and Agatha fought it out. And suddenly it makes sense why Agatha came to Westview, because when she found a witch that was so powerful, she wanted to know why, because she was going to try and absorb her power, just like she's been doing to all these other witches. So like suddenly I feel like it shines a little bit more light on why she was in Westview, and before she knew that Wanda was the Scarlet Witch and everything, she was of course trying to watch her and everything. But I think this story did a really good job of explaining why she was the way she was, why she was taking people's power, and how she ended up in Westview and her history. But I do think maybe they could have changed the order, but I liked it at the end.
I have no complaints either, but I just, all the discourse I've seen out there on this, so I just wanted to touch on that.
Yeah, because obviously we've already spoke about it. We know she's a ghost. She pops up. But Billy goes to his room and he looks around his bedroom and he sees all these things that he saw on the Witch's Road. The Ouija board, the road, he sees like the trees that look like it on his little like diorama or whatever that he's got in his room. They look just like the trees on the Witch's Road. So you kind of get this idea, right? That obviously he's starting to realize that he's the one that created the road, and it leads Agatha to be seen as a ghost, obviously. And we see in this episode, like RMC said, that he instantly, as soon as she pops up in his room, tries to go and banish her, right? And it is kind of weird that he wants to banish her after, like, trying to help her.
Yeah.
But I think the kind of like reasoning in his mind almost there is he probably blames her for the lie of the Witch's Road,
Yep.
and probably blames her for the deaths, even though it's his fault. He feels like he killed Lilia. He feels like he killed the protection witch, which I cannot remember her name at this time.
Alice.
Alice, yes, thank you. And Mrs. Hart, and he feels like he's responsible for
Yeah.
those. And Agatha at one point even reminds him, well, technically you did set one free by giving Jennifer Kale back her powers when you helped her realize that she was bound to Agatha, so she broke that spell, and that's how she got her power back. And at the end of this episode, we see her crawl through a little hole in the ground and get out and fly away like Wanda from
But where'd she go though? That's the thing there. So a couple things too. So before her sons died, he asked his mom about why they're killing witches, or he questions why they're killing witches. They create the Ballad of the Witch's Word song together.
Yep.
And then the bell he steals is the same bell that was used in episode 2.
Yeah.
So that was interesting there as well. But yeah, and then basically, she won't die because she can't face Nicholas.
Mm-hmm.
And then she'll stay with him as long as his guide, basically like a spirit guide.
And do you remember that scene where she tells Death, I want you to leave me alone forever if I give you the boy, and everything like that? I thought it was really interesting because earlier on in the show, Death says, man, I hate Ghost. I can't stand Ghost. And then Agatha becomes a ghost, right? Like, I was just like, oh, that's so perfect, So
I wonder if that rides in her favor now about her being a ghost, because now that she knows that Death will probably not come for her anymore.
Yeah, maybe.
Because of that. A couple things here from Jamie. She goes, I know it's not correlated with comic lore, but it'd be funny if Tommy was at MIT with a bunch of other kids. Hey, they do that too, and it'd be interesting too if he's there. Maybe him and Riri have cross paths, for example. So that's something there. RMCO also says, I love that people think that about her. And then he also says, good points, Alex. So, that's it. Now we know the next time we probably see Billy is he's looking for Tommy, and is that going to be a part of the Vision series that's starting to film? Is that going to be part of a rumored Young Avengers project? That might happen in Battle World, supposedly. There's also a Scarlet Witch project in the works that's being talked about. So, I'm interested to see. I wouldn't be surprised if Vision series was just on Vision and Vision finding himself after the ship of the Thesis and the whole elaboration they had in Agatha, and then him coming back out as being back with the Avengers or that kind of stuff. Or, if Armor Wars is still happening, part of Armor Wars tie into that. But hopefully they dress Tommy somehow in that series. Like, I don't want to have to wait until a Young Avengers project. I don't want to have to wait until a Scarlet Witch project. Do we ever get back with a boyfriend at all?
No, they never like touched on that. I mean, he had that one moment where like he called him in the car while Agatha and him were driving, and then they had that one episode where he was like in every part of him going to meet Ralph to like everything to figure everything out until he broke into Agatha's house. And then we just like never heard from him.
I know his name wasn't Teddy or Theodore, but that all checked the boxes for Teddy for me.
Yeah, it did feel like that,
for Hulkling. And I wonder what happens, because there was some noise about that casting, and I don't think that's the last we've seen of that character in that casting.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting.
Yeah.
But, kind of just overall, I really liked this show. Like, by the end of it, I was so shocked that I enjoyed it as much as I did, because I was really dreading it when I heard it was going to be a musical, and I was so thankful that it did not end up being that way. And I get, like, the kind of hesitance about the final fight being in episode 8, and then them just having, like, this whole origin story of the road and everything in episode 9. But I think we kind of needed it, right? Like, I mean, especially with the stuff with Nicholas Scratch. We've been wanting that since WandaVision. And it kind of also explained why Agatha ended up in Westview, because she wanted to drain Wanda's power. She didn't realize she was the Scarlet Witch. And, obviously we've seen stuff like Billy's statue and the Scarlet Witch's temple
Yep.
and stuff. So it's almost like prophesized in a way in the MCU that when you get the Scarlet Witch, you end up with Wiccan, right? And so, I think this is one of those things that, like Agatha, obviously, before the end of the episode, in episode 9, she probably most likely, as soon as they made it on the Witch's Road, knew that there was something special about Billy, but she couldn't figure out who it was,
Yep.
or what it was, So, kind of going forward, I hope they do something with Tommy and Wiccan at some point with Billy and Tommy. And I hope they kind of, maybe he'll pop back up in Vision Quest or whatever they're going to call that show. I think it was called Vision Quest at one point. But, it seems like at the end of this, him and Agatha are going to look for Tommy.
Yep.
And, it seems like they're a coven of two, as they say, I think. So very cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised that if after the Vision series they lead into the Wanda project, and it's basically a play on the Children's Crusade, but not have Doom in it, and maybe they could have Doom in it, maybe not, but it's going to be some kind of angle on that, possibly with a couple other Young Avengers. I doubt we're going to get Iron Lad this time, but we know Patriots out there, because with the whole thing with Kang and that kind of stuff, and how they kind of gone away from Kang, I doubt we're going to see Iron Lad at all. But we have Patriots, we have Kate Bishop, we have Miss Marvel, we have Cassie Lang. We're going to have the twins. They could bring in Riri. They can America Chavez. Yeah. They could basically fill in Riri as Iron Lad without the Kang tie stuff.
Yeah,
so,
I don't think they're going to do Iron Lad at this point.
Yeah.
It just doesn't really make any sense, right? And especially with the stuff with Kang, why even relate it to that or do anything like that? I know a lot of people were rooting that we would get Harley Keener back as Iron Lad, but they just need to stick with Ironheart and just move forward,
So 2 things that they could do. The Young Avengers project could be that Children's Crusade type thing they could do, or just the Children's, or the Young Avengers could be them finding each other and then taking down something, and then they find out there's some magic stuff, because we know that Riri's going to face magic. These boys, there's magic here. I wouldn't be surprised if we see something in Vision at all, or maybe it's just Vision and Tommy, or just Vision. But they could find out at the end of Young Avengers by them all assembling, kind of like similar to the way the Avengers assembled in the first Avengers movie, but the Young style. Their next starts there's this magic issue out there. Maybe we get Doctor Strange, depending on when his movie comes, his third movie, Wong or whoever, and then they go into a Scarlet Witch project that's kind of like a loosely based on the Children's Crusade type of thing. So,
I will say this too. I know Billy in the comics, he becomes super powerful, right?
I think more powerful than her. Doesn't he become more powerful than Wanda?
Well, that's what I was going to say is I think eventually he becomes I think it's called the Demerge or something like that. He's the pure essence of magic or something like that. So then it's kind of in my head, and I could be very wrong about this, but the way that I understand it is it's almost like a weird loop, right? If he becomes the essence of magic, right? And it's past, present, and future, he's the essence of magic. That's almost, and obviously I don't think we'll get Chthon or anything, right? But we had elder gods that become demons. One of the elder gods that becomes a demon is Chthon, and he's the one that creates chaos magic, who then creates Wanda as his avatar, who then creates Billy, who becomes the essence of all magic. It's a weird loop, right?
Yeah.
And so it's I love it, but it's so cool at the same time. And with all the stuff that we've talked about, time loops and stuff happening and stuff in Loki and stuff, I think it's kind of cool that almost the way that I understand it is it's almost like a weird loop. And I'm not going to say that they're going to do that in the MCU, but they could totally do something like that if they really want to, right? And I don't think we'll ever see Chthon. I would love to see him. If we would have gotten, instead of Death, if we would have gotten Gaia or something, where Plaza was Gaia or something, I think then we would probably see Chthon. But now that she's Death and everything, I don't imagine that they'll be chaos magic originated from Chthon. He made, Wanda basically his avatar, if you will, and then she created Billy, and story continues. But yeah, I think at this point, whatever they do, I like the Children's Crusade. If they choose to do that. But I'm not really sure what they're going to do with Wanda at this point. It seems like, it's weird reading stuff online and seeing how like Kevin Feige and other people like kind of talk about it. It almost seems like they don't even know what they want to do with Wanda at this point. So,
Yeah.
I think they just wanted to leave us in suspense that she might be dead for all this time, though, to be honest. And they continue to do that in the show. They were like, oh, maybe she's dead. Maybe she's not.
Yeah.
So, like, okay. So.
From the chat here, RMC says, I feel exactly the same, Alex. We pretty much concerned about the musical thing, but pleasantly surprised. The show was completely awesome. Han and Plaza nailed it. Yes. And then RMC also says Daphne King for Young Avengers. Yes, they could pull her in too as well, because she'll be around the same age as Kate and Cassie, kind of being the older ones. So possibly maybe a little bit older. And we know now, well, they'll have to pull her in from the X-Men universe, which they can with America. So yeah, that definitely could happen.
Do you remember that rumor about like some movies for individual characters would take place on Battle World?
Mm-hmm.
I would love for them to do a Young Avengers project that takes place on them all meeting on Battle World.
That could happen too.
And them doing that and moving forward. And then, of course, we end up with like a Avengers Endgame like battle where we got the Young Avengers, the Avengers, the Thunderbolts. We got everybody, and everybody's just like all coming
Thunderbolts.
together. Yeah, the Thunderbolts. Yeah. So like, yeah, it'd be awesome if they did something like that. But yeah, I hope they do something similar at least, because one of the things that I would hate for them to do is wait to do a Young Avengers project like 5 years from now, right? Like I hope they don't wait that long. So
there's still slots in the time frame. Like they still haven't talked about when the Shang-Chi 2 sequel was going to be, Doctor Strange 3. And there's, I think that February 2026 date is probably going to get moved to November for Blade. I have some Blade news. I have all kinds of news from D23 down in Brazil. So there's some good stuff there.
7 years in waiting on that Blade movie in 2026. Like, man.
See, RMC's going exactly where I'm going. I wanted Doom to ride on his grizzly bear and Blizzard with Wanda in the rubble. Red Glow was get chaos magic protecting her. Then see him ride off. She has amnesia and he tricks her into marriage. Exactly. Like, I would love to see him rolling up. And I forgot the bear's name. But I would love to see him rolling up into wherever he's going with her just draped over, like she's still not fully there from rescuing her. But he like basically sees that glow, like you're saying. I would love to see that on screen. Like it'd be kind of cool to see Scarlet Witch, the Children's Crusade, pop on screen, and that's like the start of it. Like we don't see a title screen. We just see all of a sudden Doom. It doesn't say anything, and we see like parts of Doom, like seeing the red glows, like goes over there. We see like some flashes where he gets closer. We see him kind of like, and we see it from his point of view. We don't see his face. We see his hands and that kind of stuff. Him pulling her out, more flashes, and then all of a sudden we see a shot of him saying like, "I have returned," like in the comics. But he returned back to where he's from, with her draped over, and all of a sudden it cuts to Scarlet Witch, the Children's Crusade. That would be an awesome thing to see on screen, but not the exact same Children's Crusade that we saw, because since it sounds like Doom's gonna be the main antagonist of this and the whole thing. And if we have to have like them in Battle World and that kind of stuff, the Young Avengers forming, that would be a perfect title in the middle of this whole phase and not have to worry about pushing it out into outside of this phase.
Imagine if she ends up in Battle World right after everything collapsed on her, and then Doom finds her in Battle World, and that would be excellent.
Yeah.
Something like that, and then she doesn't know who she is, and the kids finally break through to her and everything, and she thinks she's Doom's wife or whatever. And yeah, that'd be awesome.
And then RMC goes, yeah, like that, Jarian. Like Doom was looking at her before the tower fell. And it'll be a kicker too, because since she has amnesia, and if she happens to see like a disfigured face of Doom, and since it's RDJ playing Doom, she won't have that shock or anything yet because she has amnesia. But then once she comes to, and she kind of gets that kind of thing, like, you look like someone I know, but we know it's not the same related. But just from a recognition standpoint, that'd be kind of cool, where she finally figures out that something's off, and then kind of goes back to the other team. So, yeah, RMC goes, see it collapse and sees the glow. Jamie goes, if they wait too long for Young Avengers, they won't be young anymore.
That's so true.
Yeah.
But that's like the problem with Stranger Things, right? Like the kids in that show are going to be like 25 by the time that, show is like finally finished. And it's like they were so young in the beginning and now they're grown up at this point, so.
And you already got 3 of the Young Avengers are pretty much already, grown up too. Like Daphne would be, if they bring her in, Kate Bishop and Cassie would all be on their older side. Miss Kamala would be that, Kamala Khan would be on the edge of it. Patriot as well. And then you got the boys. I guess now they're all teenagers though, so they could still do that. Anyways, as we close out Agatha All Along, any final thoughts, Alex?
No, just how shocked, surprised, how much I enjoyed this show, how much I thought it kind of shined light on why Agatha was in Westview, what her game was, which was she was always just absorbing power, right, from witches and everything. And man, it kind of like paints her kind of like as like a terrible character, right? Because it's like she's killing her own kind, right? Like she's killing all the witches she can find. Like you said earlier, her son asks why she does that, and she just kind of brushes it off because we need power, kind of type of deal. And obviously, when she met Wanda, that was the one witch that she couldn't pull her.
You're gonna learn today.
Yeah, so she finally learned her lesson. But I did like that. Obviously in the MCU, we didn't see her like really be like a nanny per se, but she was kind of to the kids, and they kind of referenced it in this show. And so she did have like a relationship, and I liked how Death was like, well, you were basically like a nanny to the kid, and she was like, oh, that was like 2 minutes or something like that. It was very funny. But I thought it was really good. I was really quite surprised. I thought this was going to be a lot on Han's shoulders, this show, Catherine Hahn. But I think the kid that played Wiccan, I think, carried a lot of the weight of this show, more than I expected him to. So,
yeah, I would say I liked it too as well. It did start off a little bit slow, but after that, it's been a steady show. Like I said, there was no filler. It seemed like it was very steady in the storytelling. Yeah. I also like too, they did not leave any big things unexplained. And they've even wrapped up things from WandaVision as well in this. So I like how they did that. I still want to see where this goes as far as how they're going to find Tommy, what's going to become of Jennifer Kale, those type of things. But it's a solid show. I like it. It's another one of those shows that we watch as a family too as well. Like I actually waited to watch the episodes to when the family was ready. And it was, my daughter didn't really get into it, but my wife, my son, and I watched it together for the most part. So it's another one of those things where, because usually it's me, myself or me and my son watching the shows. But like Miss Marvel, we watched as a whole family. I need to get back and finish up Moon Girl and Double Dinosaur because we were watching that as a family too.
I haven't watched that.
I need to watch like the rest of it, the finishing of it. But then this one, it was just the 3 out of the 4 of us. So I like that Marvel's doing these projects because it's going to attract other viewers than the main cast of characters would. So I like that, and I'm looking forward to where it goes next.
I will say one cool kind of like thing that I think that they did with this show was like it ends with kind of Billy kind of basically creating his own version of a hex, right? Yep. Like I mean, the Witch's Road was kind of like his version of a hex. So he's just like his mom, and obviously Agatha said that at some point, and it's because she realized that they were on the Witch's Road and it wasn't real, and yet here they are. So, it's kind of one of those things. I think that this show, it was just really surprising at the end, and I think it had one of those like endings that just caught me off guard more than most MCU TV shows have at this point. So I would give this show, I don't know, at least a 7 or 8 out of 10. I mean, I quite enjoyed it. I thought special effects could have been better and stuff like that, but for the most part, like the practical effects that they used, they weren't bad. They looked cheap in some things, but those really in like the beginning episodes. But I think by the end of it, it looked fantastic. And yeah, I enjoyed it. It did make me wonder, like at the end of the show, and I'll say this, is Ralph going to go back home now that Agatha doesn't live in his house? Is he just never going to go home? Or, so.
RMC gives it an 8. And with that, our last show this year for Disney Plus is going to be What If? Season 3. And it's going to be the final season.
How many
So
episodes have they said?
I don't know. I have some notes when I get to it though from D23 Brazil or where that event was, but I think it was D23 Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll get to that here towards the as part of the news. So let's get into the news, and the first part of the news is all gonna be about Spider-Man. Via Danner RPK, Marvel Studios has reportedly discussed reviving the Spider-Man animated series, which I think is great.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Spider-Man '98. You know, bring it back. Bring back Earth's Mightiest Heroes, Avengers Assemble. Bring back all those cartoons. So those are some really quality content in those
I'll tell you
episodes of the
what,
shows.
Earth's Mightiest Heroes and Avengers Assemble. I could not tell you which one of those I like better because they're just so good. I love those shows. Like I have watched those shows for they've had to have been out for at least a decade now, at least probably 15 years at this point, to be honest. But like, I remember watching those shows like religiously, like a decade ago and loving those shows because they just feel like so, I don't know how to put it in words other than to say, like, if you're going to make an animated show and try and replicate stuff from the comics, I think that those shows did a really good job of doing that and giving everybody enough screen time and letting all these characters be on screen and not crowd. So,
And they've even pulled stuff from that in the movies. Like there's that one where I think it's the part of the Kang series where they all have those suits on. Where you saw them going into in-game where they were going in the quantum tunnel. That whole scene from that was there's an exact same scene like that in that cartoon. The way they did Kang too. Remember I kept saying they just need to follow that blueprint for Kang, and they deviated from it. But the whole way they did Kang in that series was great too as well.
You know what I would love to see them take from that show and put in the MCU is, do you remember the episode where the Atlanteans are trying to sink Manhattan and Hulk puts it on his shoulders and holds it up? And that was so cool, man. I love that episode. And it's just like Hulk's just getting angrier and angrier down there, and like Tony Stark calls in one of his suits, and I love the name of it. It's the rubber ducky suit, and it's like a water suit, and he goes down, and he's like, "You okay down here, big guy?" And Hulk's just getting angrier and angrier and holding it up. Man, that's so good. So, and then that episode ends with what is it, Atuma? I think it's like Hulk like ends up just throwing him like off Manhattan or whatever. Like, man, it's so good. But yeah, that's true.
Even the stuff they did with Hank Pym and Ultron and the whole jail in the negative zone, was it? Where they have the jail? Yeah.
And they've got the big house, which is the little tiny jail that they have somewhere. I love that, man. Like, it's so good, so creative, and just so good. Seeing all those like villains in prison with Ultron bots going around and taking care of them and everything. So.
And then Spider-Man 4, Tom Holland mentions that the challenge with Spider-Man 4 is finding the right spot in the timeline to best serve the larger storyline. He says, we're working now, pedal is to the metal, we're trying to get it in as soon as possible, but there's still a lot of moving pieces that need to come together for us to hit the ground running. Reportedly, though, it's going to open January 24th, 2026. That's 1 week after Chris Nolan's next movie starring Tom Holland. And then Avengers Doomsday will release 2 months after Spider-Man 4, if the schedule stays the way it is now. Via Production Weekly, they're reporting the new film titled Spider-Man Brand New Day will spin out of the events of Avengers Doomsday and feature... I'm sorry, I messed up there. Spider-Man 4 will release 2 months after Doomsday. I had to correct myself there. But following the events of Doomsday, Peter Parker is determined to lead a normal life and focus on college, stepping back from his responsibilities as Spider-Man. However, peace is short-lived when a deadly new threat emerges, endangering his friends and forcing Peter to reconsider his promise. With stakes higher than ever, Peter reluctantly returns to his Spider-Man identity and finds himself teaming up with an unlikely ally to protect the ones he loves. This sounds like Venom. This sounds like the threat is going to be null. I don't know. That's what it sounds like to me. The listing also indicates that Michael Keaton and Andrew Garfield are on board to return as Peter 3 and Adrian Toomes, respectively. I mean, he can also team up with Vulture as well, depending on what the threat is.
Need Andrew Garfield back, though? I mean, I feel like they're riding those coattails of everybody was so excited to go see No Way Home because you got this. But it's like everybody was so excited about that. Now we've had it. People aren't going to be as excited to go back and see it again, So.
Yeah, it'd be kind of cool though to see Garfield get Venom though.
Yeah.
There's also talk about Tom Hardy, Venom versus Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
So at New York Comic Con, Tom Hardy, when asked if he would return as Venom to fight Spider-Man, I would like to fight Spider-Man, and I would like to do it now. I'm well up for it. Never say never.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, there was a line. Can I just say one spoiler line from The Last Dance? There was a line where Venom says, basically, it's not goodbye. It's like a "I'll see you later" kind of type of thing, and so it makes you believe that Venom's gonna come back at some point, right? So,
well, there's also, I won't say now. There's also something else that gave you the clue too, as well. But I'll wait until we talk about it.
mm-hmm.
I won't say that now. Because my son was all up, like, he's like, look, I'm telling you, my son called it during the film, and then he pointed it out, and that's all I'll say now. So Holland knew about RDJ Doom casting. So in Holland's like one of the ones, like, he's like doesn't really keep things, you know.
Yeah, that's surprising. He can't keep his mouth closed.
Yeah, but via Variety, I've been speaking to Robert a lot, especially about him making his return, which is super exciting. That was a tough secret to sit on because I have a reputation for ruining things, and I strategically have, excuse me, have done no press. So that's why he's been quiet.
I mean, he's not worse than like Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah,
but he's pretty bad. You know, Mark Ruffalo is like streaming the first 10 minutes of a movie off his phone by accident. You know, like, so I mean, it could be worse. But yeah, that'll be really interesting. I'm surprised that he can hold any of that information in, because it's easy to slip up, right? Like, especially when you don't really know what's top secret and what's not, and, you know.
Well, I always thought it was funny when it was, who was it? Was it Anthony Mackie and Mark Ruffalo? And Mark Ruffalo was like basically saying something, and Anthony Mackie's like,
no,
what are you doing?
Don Cheadle.
Oh, it's Don Cheadle. Yeah, okay.
And he's like, so Mark Ruffalo's sitting there and he's talking to Don Cheadle, and Mark Ruffalo goes, he's talking about Avengers Infinity War, I think it was. And he's like, wait till you see this next one. Everybody dies.
Yeah.
And Don Cheadle goes, dude. And he's like, what, do you think I'm in trouble now? And he's like, well, you just need to stop talking. Like,
Yeah,
you know? So funny.
Venom stuff. Chiwetel Ejiofor's character. I'm sorry. This is before I saw Venom 3. And so basically, his character is confirmed to be General Rex Strickland, who becomes a symbiote bonded super soldier in the comics. But he didn't become a symbiote bonded super soldier in the movie, and that's all I'll say about that. Via Games Radar, writer-director Kelly Marcel says Null's appearance in Venom: The Last Dance is kind of a taster of where we might potentially be able to go with his own movies. So, the same way they introduced Thanos very carefully through the Marvel movies. It was the quote, so, as well. Via The Wrap, Tom Hardy is pushing for a Logan-style Venom film. So, that'd be interesting to see that one, how they would do that.
I'll say this, and this just goes back to the first Venom movie. When I rewatched that, there was a character in there that I don't think I ever paid attention or caught. But you remember at the beginning of that movie when the ship crashes in Malaysia and they have like one astronaut that they recover that like is badly injured, and I think they put him on a stretcher. His name is Jameson. So I think that's supposed to be, you know, Jameson's son. And I was like, oh, like I did not catch that.
Neither did
I
I.
watched that. So I was like so caught off guard. So yeah.
We saw that, what, in Spider-Man 2, was it we saw that, or 3? Where Mary J was going to marry him.
Oh, I think that was in Spider-Man 2, wasn't it? Yeah. So
Okay.
I think that's Spider-Man 2. The one with Tobey Maguire, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just thought that was a really interesting kind of thing that they threw in there, that like you only like see him like laying there, and I think they put him on a stretcher and take him away, and then it's like never mentioned again. I was like, oh, that's so funny, because like we know that Jameson's son is an astronaut.
Yep.
You know, so like it's like, okay, like yeah, that makes sense. Like, you know, so
Agent Venom, via Daniel RPK. Agent Venom movie is rumored to be in the works at Sony. Separately, Joe Manganiello, who's also in True Blood, wants to play Agent Venom in Avengers: Secret Wars. So,
interesting.
Some Thanos news. Rumor is that Thanos will make a return in Secret Wars, possibly a multiversal variant to face off with Doom. Via Jack Schaefer says there's no death in Thanos connections established in Agatha all along. Thanos stands out there. I have no answers for you. So, yeah, I'm interested to see Thanos coming back, and I wonder if we're going to see a similar scene to where we saw in What If, where Ultron just wipe the floor with them quickly. I wonder if we'll see Doom do the same thing if he shows up, or is he going to be an Avengers ally?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be interesting to see.
Wolverine's
cool. Go ahead.
It'd be kind of cool just to see that scene with Doom play out, where like all of the villains come off in Battle World of the ship, and he's talking to them, and he's like, I'd like to offer you this kingdom here. You can rule this. And Thanos, he just rips Thanos' spine out of him. That'd be so cool just to see Thanos kind of come back, because obviously we've seen Thanos like make a reappearance in What If and stuff like that. But I almost have a very interesting feeling that I can't imagine that if we do see him, he'll take up too much screen time in the MCU, other than kind of just something like that. Because imagine like if we saw Doom just destroy Thanos, right? Like that'd be one of those things where it'd be like, oh, okay, like he was the big bad like in Endgame, and he just got walked in this,
It'd be kind of cool to kind of see like at the very beginning of Doomsday, like the opening scene of Doomsday. Basically, you see Doom and Thanos fighting, and then Doom just annihilates the floor. Because remember, the last big threat we saw in the MCU was Thanos. So if you establish quickly that Doom wiped the floor with him quickly, that sets the tone for Doomsday.
He's a crazy threat at that point, right? Like, because it's like the Avengers had to go back in time to beat Thanos, and in this one, it's like he just mopped the floor with Thanos. So that'd be
another
insane.
Opening scene for you, Marvel. Have that fight happen at the very beginning of the Avengers Doomsday. Like, you open up the fight with it. Just all of a sudden you go into it with the fight of Doom and Thanos. Doom pulls his spine out, takes him out, and all of a sudden the title comes out, Avengers Doomsday. Right there, boom. Thank you, pay me money. No, I'm just kidding.
It'd be funny if they did like something where he like rips the spine out and he goes like this, and then it's like you see in the spine like bones, like Avengers Doomsday.
That's even better.
So it'd be awesome.
RMC says if they bring back Thanos, they have to show Doom rip out his spine, mandatory. See, we're all in agreement there. Wolverine suit via comicbook.com. Marvel Studios reportedly spent $100,000 to create the brown and tan Wolverine suit for Deadpool and Wolverine.
Wow.
So
seems like a lot.
Daredevil news via New York Comic Con. Daredevil Born Again will come out to you March 4th, 2025. 9 episodes for the first season. They also showed a trailer too, and we got a synopsis. In Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again, Matt Murdock, Charlie Cox, a blind lawyer with heightened abilities, is fighting for justice through his bustling law firm, while former mob boss Wilson Fisk, Vincent D'Onofrio, pursues his own political endeavors in New York. With their past identities begin to emerge, both men find themselves on an inevitable collision course. So there you go.
Interesting.
Via Screen Rant, D'Onofrio, the future of Daredevil and Kingpin, talks about it. Just the other day, we were in a conversation with our writers. One of them slipped and said, we're both like, what? It seemed like something beyond our show. So what it could be about. I wonder if this could be something with Battle World, possibly, with the movie stuff. So we'll see what happens with that one. Tommy Shepard news. Reportedly, Marvel Studios is close to casting an actor for the role of Tommy Shepard / Speed in Vision Quest. So there you go.
Yeah.
I forgot all about that. Via Variety, Jacques Schaefer says they consider having Tommy and Agatha all along. Do we have the casting yet? It gets kind of tricky there. So this was much of a Tommy as we could do for the purposes of this show. So there you go. That's why we didn't see him. There was no casting yet. Speaking of that, Young Avengers. Jason Statham has been cast in the MCU. He will play a role in the Young Avengers film. And this comes from SuperCon officials on Instagram. So I'm not sure if this is true or not, but that was floating out there in the social media world. I wonder what role he could play. Could he be the villain? Could he be someone like could he be their Jarvis? I don't know.
You said Statham, right?
Jason Statham.
I know I said this the other day, but I always like imagined him as a Taskmaster or something like that, right?
He could pull it off.
I mean, he can fight and everything like that. I love the Transporter movies. I thought he was excellent in those.
I wonder though how much he could be like on the personality of Taskmaster though.
Yeah, I mean, I one time heard him say that he had no interest in ever being in a superhero movie. So it's so funny how I guess things change, but
Changed. Yeah.
but it is what it is. So.
Marvel movie updates via Dinner RPK. Doctor Strange 3 and Shang-Chi 2 won't begin filming until 2026. Doomsday and Secret Wars via Collider Russo Brothers. Doomsday and Secret Wars will not be filmed back to back either. They're not as separated as you would normally separate two films of this scale, but they're more substantially separated than Infinity and Endgame by a year or so. So like how they did basically those two films back to back, and now they did that, you're not getting that same filming style with Doomsday and Secret Wars. Okay. Via THR, so Hollywood Reporter, Tom Holland will appear as Spider-Man in Doomsday. He's expected to film scenes for it between Christopher Nolan's upcoming movies and Spider-Man 4. So he's going to be a busy person.
Yeah.
Via Dinner RPK, Avengers Secret Wars is going to film in the UK from March 2026 to give them room for Marvel actors to film other projects in between. So, speaking of Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur I mentioned earlier, they will not have a third season, but they'll have a season 2B with the final batch of episodes. I'm kind of sad to see that because that show was really good.
Okay.
I need to catch up on it still, but what I've seen so far, I really like it. Blade news. Via official release from Disney, Marvel Studios has removed Blade from its 2025 film slate indefinitely. Marvel Studios is currently in talks with the director. Via Dinner RPK, Blade is set to begin filming in 2025 in the UK. Will have a smaller budget, will be very dark, will be all R-rated. They're working on a new script again. So, the movie's in purgatory.
That movie's in development hell.
Yeah.
You know?
But I have some more news later on when I get to the D23 stuff. Midnight Suns, via Dinner RPK, Marvel Studios is reportedly fast-tracking the Midnight Suns film. The studio is currently searching for a director. Hey, just use Giacchino. There you go. Fantastic Four, via Entertainment Tonight, Natasha Lyonne has revealed that she has wrapped filming for the Fantastic Four First Steps. I wonder who she is in that film. Is she Alicia? She's not Herbie, because I have news about Herbie.
No, okay. That was going to be my guess. Was Herbie,
yep, she's not Herbie, so could she be Alicia? Via Daniel RPK, Marvel Studios reportedly interested in Billie Eilish for a big role. Okay. Via the Cosmic Circus, Jack Parker will reportedly be bringing Herbie to life as his puppeteer in Fantastic Four First Steps. So, Jack Parker is basically using practical effects for it. Max Shackman has opted to use a practical puppet for Herbie and will take a similar approach in the film as the droids in Star Wars. It is currently unknown if Jack will also be voicing him. So there you go. And another person I was wrong about. See, this all makes sense of this. If you're going to have Alicia, why not have Puppet Master in the film? Which I thought John Malkovich was the person to play that when they cast him. But via Murphy's Multiverse, John Malkovich will reportedly be portraying Ivan Kragoff, the Red Ghost, who basically controls an army of, I think, apes, if I remember correctly, from the comics.
Okay.
But that's who he's going to be, which I'm glad they're pulling from these characters from like the origin part of Fantastic Four, because it looks like we're going to buy season stuff in the beginning before they get pulled into the main stuff here. RMC says Swift will be next. Well, Kevin Feige has said for a while that he wanted to get her into the MCU, so yep. Anyways, Pepper Potts via Dinner RPK, Marvel Studios reportedly wants Gwyneth Paltrow back as Pepper Potts in the next Avengers film. So that'd be kind of cool.
I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense, right? Like, I mean, she's kind of in charge of Stark Industries at this point and everything. So, I mean, Stark Industries is still doing so much stuff in the background of the MCU, and I feel like that's always going to be a staple, right? So she can just kind of pop up for the next 10 years if they really wanted to. So.
I would love to see her make a cameo in Ironheart. As well.
Yeah, I mean, especially after we saw in Wakanda Forever that she had hacked into the Stark Industries, like
she had plans,
and stolen like plans and stuff. So why not like have her be like, "Oh, so you decided to hack into Stark Industries, huh?" Like the only person who could pull that off was Tony Stark.
Yep.
You know,
and there in the comics too. There's precedence there. So
yep, and that would be really cool if that's how Riri gets the Stark AI.
Yep,
would be if she's like, well, I've had this. This was something that Tony had done, but I want to give it to you because you're the only person to break into Stark.
Yeah, that knows how to do it. Yeah, what to do with it.
So.
Armor Wars via MovieWeb, writer Yasir Lester confirms that Armor Wars is still in development but unsure. In the same way Blade goes away and comes back the next day, Armor Wars it'll be a thing that happens every few months, then it won't happen, then it'll happen again. So there you go. Hawkeye Season 2, via Dinner RPK, Season 2 could release before 2028, but only if Marvel Studios starts filming on time. Clint's brother, Barney Botten, aka Trickshot, is rumored to play a major role in the series. Marvel Studios is currently looking for a huge name to portray the role. And we have some 2025 TV and animation lineup news. So before we get 2024 in December, the end of December is going to be What If Season 3, and it's going to be the final season. 2025 is going to start with a bang, though. So we're going to get Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man in January of 2025. Okay. February is going to be Captain America Brave New World. And then March is going to be Daredevil Born Again. So think about that right there. Yes, we're starting off. Yeah, basically, so December, January, February, and March is going to be boom, boom, boom Marvel.
Wow.
Then so March 4th is Born Again. Then on August 6th, we're going to get the Eyes of Wakanda animated series, which is going to be a timepiece going through Wakanda, getting back vibranium that's out there in the wild, but also too, there's rumored about an Iron Fist appearance in that series as well. Oh. Via the chat, RMC says ready for Hawkeye 2 and Clint's brother. Yep, same as well. Ironheart is going to be September 3rd. Marvel Zombies will be in October. Wonder Man will be in December. So Marvel's going to have a pretty packed year because you think about it, you have those first 4 months, those first 3 months of back-to-back stuff. Man. We're gonna have a break, and then in what, June or July or May, June or July, I can't remember. We're gonna get Thunderbolts. Then we're gonna get Eyes of Wakanda, Ironheart. Basically, so August, September, October, boom, 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 break. December. Then a break after that. So, so it's like the beginning of the year and the fall of next year is gonna be packed with Marvel stuff. Yep, Jamie Cloud, I agree with you. She says 2025 will be fire. So yeah, that's gonna be a big year next year for Marvel.
I'm still not the craziest about Thunderbolts, but
I don't know. It looks fun. That we'll talk about the trailer here and shortly. But it looked fun.
It's not like bad. I mean, I think it's gonna probably surprise me like the third Venom movie did, But like going into that, I can only be so excited. I feel like so.
Via Murphy's Multiverse, a Power Pack animated series is in development. So there you go.
That's weird.
Yeah, I think it's been kind of off and on for a while though. So, via Nexus Point News, Allison Seeley Smith will return to voice Storm in What If Season 3. I believe she voiced Storm in X-Men '97. Okay. So there you go. Okay, so we had D23 in Brazil over the weekend. Kevin Feige has some quotes here. RMC's pumped for Thunderbolts. Kevin Feige on when Miles Morales will be introduced in the MCU. Miles will appear in the third Spider-Verse movie, which is in production. I hope that shortly after that, he could enter the MCU in live action, which makes you think that the third movie is going to be called Beyond the Spider-Verse. That as him jumping across the multiverse and that kind of stuff in the Spider-Verse, he ends up jumping out into the MCU timeline.
Man,
just a hunch here.
Good.
Yeah.
They are so good. I hope they do something like that.
Feige also talked about Marvel Studios' focus on the upcoming Avengers films. When you set out to make 2 Avengers films, they are colossal, massive, and consume you entirely. But we've already announced a Spider-Man film that will be released between Doomsday and Secret Wars, which makes you think that that's going to be a big connection there by doing that Spider-Man movie. Feige also says that X-Men will be important to the MCU after the events of Secret Wars. He also said Marvel Studios will go down to 2 films, 3 series after 2025's massive slate. So we're going to get spoiled next year, and then 2026 it's going to drop off like a cliff again like this year was. So there you go. Yeah. He says, it turns out we've been working on these titles for a long time, and they just happen to be ready to launch now. We're very excited. Feige on plans to use Deadpool and Wolverine as much as they can. The plans with Deadpool and Wolverine will always be the same. We're always wondering where we can fit them in and how quickly.
Till Hugh Jackman's 90.
Yep. Like he said in that movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Feige also assures that more Marvel television and Marvel animation series will be renewed. That starts with Daredevil Born Again. We're really excited to premiere that first season next year, when we'll be filming the second season as well. We like the idea of developing series for multiple seasons. After all, that's one of the coolest things about television. He teased the Scarlet Witch return too in the MCU. Also, we just had Agatha All Along on Disney Plus, and that series was great for us. Since then, there have been a lot of questions about Wanda on the minds of fans. So I can only say that we're excited to find out when and how the Scarlet Witch might return. So there you go. She's coming back. Blade. He also talked about the Blade film. So we talked about how it's taken off the 2025 slate. People think it's going to be in 2026 in November, but he talks about we are committed to Blade. We love the character. We love the version that Mahershala Ali has of him. I can say that the character will reach the MCU. So Blade's happening, just a matter of when. Not if, but when. They also showed some what if. I'm sorry. They also showed some previews of things. Mm-hmm. We got a new look at What If Season 3. Utu and multiple watchers. Kahori's back. They're going to be mechs. So get ready for that one. A White Vision is going to be there. Ice Giant Loki. Storm will yield Mjolnir. And that's, again, Alison Smith-Silly will voice her. We're also going to get Arisheim in What If Season 3. So we might get some Eternals in Season 3.
Yeah.
Of What If.
And this is the final season of What If, right?
Yep. Anthony Mackie will be voicing Sam Wilson. So we're going to get the new Captain America. But yes, this will be the final season. It was going to premiere December 22nd.
Okay.
Now, my problem with this is you don't retire this show. Out of all your animated shows, you don't retire this one. What If is like a testing ground for things, or if something changes differently. Yeah, one shots. You can keep going with What If without anything, just doing all these different things with it. That was the best thing about the comics of What If. So I don't know why they're canceling 3 seasons.
I feel like I get it. Like, you might want to end it right with all the multiversal stuff, because it's like whenever you're trying to end the multiverse, you don't want to be like, hey, guess what? Like, after the multiverse stuff, let's look at all these other universes where other things are happening. So I kind of see it from that perspective. But like you, I'm like, man, there are so many good stories that like don't need a movie, that you could just do an episode on, like Cosmic Ghost Rider. Yep. Like, I would love to see that. They could knock that out in 30 minutes and it would be like excellent, and it would be awesome. There's so many different little things that have spun out of that, like Marvel Zombies, for instance. Like, that spun out of What If. Like, that was a testing ground for that, and that led to that. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I definitely agree with you. I think they could keep this going, and just like they don't even have to make a season of it every year. It could be like 2 years from now they come out with another one, like, or
they just randomly put out shows out there.
Yeah, just randomly drop episodes or something. That'd be cool. But yeah, so.
Via the chat, Jimmy says, I don't think the Blade movie will happen. That was just a roundabout way of saying he'll be in someone else's movie, I'm thinking. I don't know. I can see that too happening as well with everything. RMC agrees with Jamie. They might bring him in Midnight Suns first, then his solo.
You know what really just it feels like a punch in the face to me is the fact that Blade was just off screen, but was in the Eternals movie.
Yep.
With Mahershala Ali, and then ever since then, it's like we haven't seen him. We've heard him, but we haven't actually seen Blade. It's like,
speaking of Eternals, I have something too. Keep going. I gotta find that.
It's just a little complaint of mine that, like, it's just one of those things that we can't get the Blade movie, but we can get him off screen talking. It just I don't know. It just doesn't really sit well with me. It's very frustrating. So
speaking of the Eternals, Kevin Feige also teased the future of Eternals in the MCU. We'll be lucky to get any of them back at some point. So
yeah, like I said, that feels like if we're lucky to get them all in the same room.
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
At some point, maybe we might do something. So.
And then Brad Wonderbaum says he wants Jessica Jones to get a new season. So.
I like Jessica Jones, so
yeah.
I have an issue with that. So.
Yep, RMC says I agree with Alex. It's been frustrating with Blade. Yep, and he's like one things I was looking forward to, and it's funny they let that Wesley Snipes line in Deadpool 3 because that's what it feels like about, I'm the only Blade that there ever was and there ever will be line. So
yeah, and I mean, I felt like that was probably a little bit of a shot at Marvel from Ryan Reynolds. I'm sure Ryan Reynolds probably had them put that line in the script or something, So,
Fantastic Four news. Kevin Feige also said that they're just a few weeks left of filming. It's still released. Wait, is it next year? July 20th? Is it next year? Fantastic Four?
Is it next year?
So are we getting 3 movies next year?
I'm not sure.
Because I thought May was Thunderbolts. Hold on. Let me check here. I had this written down wrong. My note's wrong. I thought it was 2026.
I thought it was too.
Yeah, July 8th, 2025. Sorry, July 5th. Yeah, it is. So, I'm sorry. So we are getting 3 movies next year. We're getting Brave New World, Thunderbolts, and Fantastic Four. So, July 25th, 2025. Star Wars news. Via Empire Magazine, James Mangold confirms that his Star Wars film could start filming as early as next year. The film will follow the origins of the Force and will be set 25,000 years in the past.
Good Lord.
Yeah. Via Puck News, Jon Favreau's The Mandalorian Grogu, starring Pedro Pascal, has wrapped filming. The film is on track to release on theaters May 22nd, 2026. And Jamie has a list here, but I don't see anything else, so I'll keep an eye on the chat for that. A new Star Wars trilogy has been developed with X-Men alum Simon Kinberg attached to write and produce. It will begin a new series after 2019 Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker concluded the Skywalker. So it's going to be after that. Okay, RMC says, wow, okay, I'm on board with that Star Wars. Okay, cool. Andor, according to an advertisement seen on Disney Plus mobile app, Season 2 of Andor is set to debut on April 2022 of next year.
Okay.
I just gotta watch the first one. Season.
I quit watching Star Wars like in season 2 of The Mandalorian at the end, and I haven't been back to watch season 3, and I'm so far behind. I've never been a big fan of Star Wars, but
I want to see the Gladiator just so I can see Pedro Pascal's character get his butt whipped. I don't know. For some reason, there's something about Pedro Pascal. I'm not a big fan of him. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I like him. I just don't think he was a good choice as Reed Richards, to be honest. But
maybe that's what it is.
That. I'm a little bit sour on that. I love all the other castings, I guess, but yeah, he's just like, I feel like he's one of those characters that he's like in that dad role now, where like they always want him to play like a dad, kind of type character. I mean, so that's what he was to Grogu in The Mandalorian and in that
Maxwell Lord.
Yeah. Well, what was the show with the that was based on a video game?
The Last of Us.
Yeah, Last of Us. That's what he kind of is in that character.
I still haven't watched that either.
I haven't watched it either. So I've seen those games be played by one of my friends, but I've never actually played them, and I just know a little bit about them. And that's about it.
Jimmy says her list malfunctioned. Well, if you can repost it, because I want to see what your list is now. Because first you piqued my curiosity. Now I'm interested. So hopefully you can be able to post that again. If not, we can chat in the group later about it. Predator. Via Gizmodo, the Secret Predator Project is reportedly an animated anthology film. The movie will follow 3 separate stories of predators battling fierce warriors across different eras, which could potentially include samurais and pirates. That'd be kind of cool. And the last thing on the Disney front is Disney changes are happening. You're all right?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm sorry. I was speaking to somebody.
The Walt Disney Company is tapping Morgan Stanley executive James Gorman to serve as the next chairman. They will begin early next year. As announced, that it anticipates naming its CEO in early 2026. Gorman will become the chairman on January 2nd, 2025. He will succeed Mark Parker, who is leaving after serving on Disney's board for 9 years. Gorman is currently chair of Disney's succession planning commit. So there you go. So first you get a new board, and then you're going to get a new CEO. Very interesting to see what changes happen with this. Okay. Now we're out of Disney, so we're done with Marvel. We're done with Star Wars. We're done with any of that stuff. Joker series. Via Jeff Snyder, a new Joker series played by Barry Keoghan. Is that how you say his last name?
I think so.
Okay. Is reportedly in the works. The series is set between the Batman 2 and 3. Unclear whether HBO or Max will develop. Barry Keoghan is expected to make a brief appearance in the Batman 2. There you go, Alex.
So he must break out at Arkham then, and
Yep.
it seems like that's going to happen. And let me just say, it can't be any worse than that second Joker movie, whatever they do with it. So my expectations are going to be higher. I mean, I love that the Batman movie. I thought that
So do
was
I.
excellent. I thought Matt Reeves did an excellent job of that. And I actually had somebody that I converted to a Batman fan after watching that, because they were like, "Oh, I don't like Batman stuff." I was like, "You got to watch this movie. You got to watch this movie." And then they watched the movie and they're like, "Oh, I love this movie." I was like, "Okay, good." So, yeah, I mean, they can't do any worse than the second Joker movie, so I'm not going to complain about that at all. So
I need to watch the Penguin series too. I've heard great things about it. I'm probably gonna binge watch it, and then we need to figure out a schedule so we can binge watch it and then have a recap of it.
I have not watched one episode. I'm very
I haven't
sad
either.
to say that, and I haven't watched the Kite Man series. I'm behind on the Harley Quinn show. There's just been so much to watch, and I just do not have enough time. And I've been trying to keep up with everything, but it's so hard. So
I understand. I'm the same there with you, especially with the RMC says Penguin series is gold. It's so good. Oh, I can't read now. It's so good, not gold. Gen V season 2 is wrapped filming. It's going to be coming to Prime Video in 2025. Dune via Deadline. Denis Villeneuve confirms his next film will be Dune Messiah. The script is currently being written. The story takes place 12 years after Dune 2. So we're going to see his little sister growing up a little bit. He's going to be older. RMC goes, it's gold, though. It is. We're going to see his little sister growing up. Timothy Chalamet, Zendaya, Florence Pugh, and Anya Taylor-Joy are essential players returning. The filming starts in 2026. This is going to be a long time between Dune films. But I guess they probably might. I wonder how they're going to age up Timothy a little for that movie.
yeah, I don't know. He's kind of young, isn't he?
Yeah. That's why I like the 1980s version of it. Was it like late 80s, early 90s version of Dune where it all wrapped up in one movie?
I'm not sure. I haven't really watched the Dune stuff, to be honest. So
I liked them. Speaking of Dune, Dune Prophecy premieres November 17th on Max. I believe this is the prequel series, if I remember correctly.
okay.
So there you go. That's coming out here pretty soon. But next week. No, or not next week, but next Sunday. 7 days from today.
Wow.
Fallout. Leslie Uggams reveals Fallout Season 2 starts filming this November. Also, too, Macaulay Culkin is going to be in Fallout Season 2.
Yeah, I've seen that. That's crazy. It's always so crazy to see him pop up somewhere, right? Like, he was in a season of American Horror Story, and I was like, what? Like, when did this happen? Like, why did this happen? You know? And he wasn't necessarily bad, but I always get surprised seeing him, right? Like, you know, it's always a shock whenever he plays other roles. I think I'm so used to seeing him as a child in Home Alone that I just always think of him as a little kid, you know? So
RMC says Fallout was a good show. Yes, I really enjoyed that. My wife really enjoyed it too, and it's good when my wife watched it because we get to talk about it, and I'm not just rambling about stuff with my son, so she can actually have conversation with us too. Speaking of Macaulay Culkin, was it him that dressed up as Joe Burrow for Halloween? I think.
I feel like I saw something like
Yeah, because there's that resemblance there between him and Joe Burrow. I think he did dress up as Joe Burrow for Halloween. If you don't know who Joe Burrow is the quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals. For those listening, you may not be sports fans. Last but not least, Godzilla. A new Godzilla film has been greenlit. Directed by Takashi Yamazaki, who did Godzilla -1. So that was a good film. Have you seen that one yet?
Did I see -1? Is that the one that's in like Japanese the entire? Okay, yes. So funny story about this. I went to go see that movie theaters, and for some reason I was so tired I fell asleep. And they have that scene where Godzilla like is in like the second town in that movie, when he like attacks the second city or whatever, and he shoots that beam across like the city and just destroys everything. I'm dead asleep, right? And I hear that thing go off, and I thought like a missile went off, and I like fell like out of my chair, like I was like, what? And I like woke up and look around. I'm like, oh my god!
I started laughing right away because I knew exactly where you were going when you said that scene.
It scared me so bad, man. It scared me. So, it was a good movie.
Yeah, RMC says it was a good movie as well. But also, the very last... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, that one scene where Godzilla's, like, going behind the boat and
they're, like, chasing them.
That is one of the greatest Godzilla scenes. I've loved it, man. It is so good. So.
Man, this Godzilla stuff has been just the whole thing with the MonsterVerse and that stuff, Monarch as well, and they've got season 2 coming now, so I'm like all on board with the Godzilla stuff right now. Last thing though, so Takashi Yamazaki, he also he indicated that he has met with Kevin Feige. So I wonder what that could be about. I also wonder if they're trying to fast track Midnight Suns. If he could be a fit for Midnight Suns.
I'm not sure. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I have to think about that one.
So something to keep an eye on. I also wonder too. Well, Kevin wouldn't have that. Even though Predator is the same company now, I don't think he would have to do anything with Predator. Because if they're doing a Predator series with pirates and samurais, you know, but because that's Marvel too as well. So
yeah.
But that is it for the news today. Before we close things out, any last comments, Alex?
No, nothing too crazy. Other than if you haven't seen Agatha all along, definitely go check it out. Quite enjoyed it, and I know that's what this episode was mostly about that we talked about, you know. But yeah, you got to definitely check it out, give it a watch. And if you liked American Horror Story Season 3, Coven, I think you would like this show. So I think it's kind of similar in a few aspects. So definitely give it a watch. And I think a lot of people would probably enjoy it if they haven't. So.
Yep. If you haven't watched it or you started watching it and it was too slow for you and you give up on it, go continue watching it because it does pick up and is a good series.
I think that ending was one of the best endings for me of an MCU TV show. I said it earlier, and I just can't beat that horse, you know, enough. So,
last thing too, some administrative things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, give us feedback, all that kind of stuff. If you follow us on your podcast app, you can find Comics Evolved in the usual places. Facebook page. If you're on Facebook, please follow the page. I would like to get back to streaming the page too as well at some point. So please follow the page. You can find us on the groups for Comics Evolved on Kick, Trovo, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube. It's very unlikely that we're ever going to stream back to Twitter or X or what it's called now because they charge you for it, and I'm not paying for that stuff. And then you can find us Comic Evolved on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. Other than that, we're probably going to be back next Sunday doing Venom 3, The Last Dance. Sound good? Alex is in.
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, so we'll be back next Sunday.
Yeah.
We're going to do Venom: The Last Dance review. And then from there, we'll see because there's some... I know Kraven's still coming out this year. We have The Penguin to watch still. I'm trying to think what else. What If? Season 3 is coming out. Maybe we'll get Andy back on here before the end of the year. Yeah, I know he's busy, but we'll see if we can get him back for an episode.
I gotta say, I'm the least excited for Kraven. I'm really worried about that one. We'll see how that one lands, if it sticks the landing or not. But
I'm going into it with an open mind.
Yeah. So. I mean, you know, I feel like Sony movies are so hit or miss. So I think Venom's been one of the most successful ones for them other than Spider-Man. So.
Can't be worse than Madam Web.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Morbius.
Or Morbius. Either of them. So, yes, Jamie, we miss Andy as well. Jamie. And then RMC says he's very concerned about Kraven. Wait a minute. We don't just leave yet. Wait a minute. We're in bonus time. There were 2 trailers. Thank you, Jamie, for reminding me about that. There were 2 trailers shown, or at least at D23. The first one was Thunderbolts. So we got more scenes into it. It was more of the same, but we got more into the car chase with Bucky. I have questions about Bucky and where he's at in his life right now because it looks like Bucky is full Winter Soldier without the programming. So where has that been? Because it seemed like they nerfed Bucky once he was deprogrammed, right? I don't think he was as much in Falcon the Winter Soldier when he came back in Endgame. So I'm just like, what happened with Bucky?
What's his development?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I thought the trailer looks good. The movie looks fun. I still do think that we're going to get the asterisk is going to be Dark Avengers. They had the whole thing with the Thunderbolts and line about we're the Thunderbolts. Alexi said that, and they're like, no, we're not the Thunderbolts. We got a shot of Jill Dwayne as well, the actress who's supposed to be Val's assistant. I still think she ends up being Melissa Gold, aka Songbird. We'll see though. I don't think she's there just for that kind of a role. Let me see what RMC says. He was struggling mentally then. Seems more grounded here with his day job. That could be it too. Maybe he was still working through the deprogramming of the Winter Soldier stuff. But it was cool to see that. The costumes look okay. Taskmaster, I get where they're going with it. They can't do the skull because if they do the skull, they can't release over in China. But the mask looks too much Casey Jones for me from the Ninja Turtles. The hockey mask that he wore. It looks too much like that for me, but it looks pretty cool. I still wonder where this film is going to go and what's going to be the result of it.
I said this the other day, but I know like in China they don't really like the demonic stuff and they don't like stuff with skulls. So I'm quite worried about a Ghost Rider project ever being released over there. Let's be real. So I know we've had a couple of movies already, but I feel like that might hurt them over there a little bit on showing that Marvel project. But we'll see. So.
But I will say Thunderbolts looks still fun, so I'm looking forward to it. But Brave New World. Oh my goodness! I'm trying to cuss here while I'm saying that line because we're like a family-oriented, friendly PG-13 show. So I'll say, "Oh my goodness!" with Brave New World. It looked like that kind of spy thriller stuff. I'm like pumped to see it. Right? We see that Isaiah is programmed. He's in jail. That new suit that Sam's got, the helmet when he comes in, then when he drops down, he's like, "Wait for it," and then they get the shock from him landing. And then also too when that Hulk shot when he's fighting the Hulk and he does that flip and the wings cut through the car because we know he has vibranium suit now from Falcon the Winter Soldier. That was pretty cool too. So it does look like Sam is going to stand up to it. Now if he gets juiced or not, meaning that super soldier or not, we'll see. But just seeing how it almost looks like they're making the one agent a Black Widow the one agent they changed their origin story on. All that kind of stuff too. When he's in the mid-air, yes, Jimmy, I was getting rid of that. When he's in mid-air and he's flying, he throws the shield at the missiles. I think it was. That was pretty cool too. And it almost looks like he has two masks in this movie because I think at one point we see the dark mask on after we've seen the white mask. So definitely has that espionage, almost Winter Soldier-ish type feel to it in some of this, behind the scenes stuff, infiltration type. So looking forward to seeing Gina Carlo, Sidewinder. I'm going on here. Go ahead, Alex. I'm just so excited about Brave New World.
I was just gonna add, I love the mask. The mask reminds me of a mix between a pilot's, a fighter pilot's mask, obviously.
Yep.
And then a Spartan's mask from Halo, if anybody's ever played that or seen that. The Spartans are, of course, super soldiers in that universe and everything, so kind of ironic. But yeah, I mean, that mask is sweet, and very excited for Red Hulk in this. I'm curious to see what they do with that. I think from what I've seen so far, I think what's his name? I don't know why I'm drawing a blank.
Tim Stern's the leader.
Ford.
Harrison Ford. Okay.
Ford. I think he looks like he's going to be a great Red Hulk.
Yep.
It looks good. So that's going to be exciting. And I shared a new poster on the group of Sam holding up the shield and Red Hulk punching it, and I'm just like, man, I just want to see that happen.
See, and that makes me think he's gonna get juiced because I know because that shield can help out, but how is Sam staying unless his suit is helping him? How was he able to stand there with that?
Yeah. So I agree with you. I think he's and that's kind of been his story, right? Like, can he be Captain America without the super
Yep.
soldier serum? So I feel like that's going to be something that's always going to be a thing until he eventually gets the super soldier serum. And he does get the super soldier serum, I believe, at one point in the comics when he becomes Captain America, right? If I remember correctly.
I can't remember. That's a good question. I thought never got juiced.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong. I
Or
thought
maybe
he
I'm
did.
misthinking. Maybe I'm misthinking it too. I'll have to go back and check.
I thought he did, but I could be wrong on that. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's definitely going to be a large part of his story moving forward, whether or not he can have the shield and be Captain America without the super soldier
Yep.
serum. So I think that's going to play a part in this movie. I have a very strong feeling before the end of this movie, before he fights Red Hulk, he's going to get juiced up, and we'll probably see him full on Captain America at some point. So.
RMC says I'm still going to imagine it was New World Order. It was a good name for that movie. I understand why they changed that in Saber, but still, yep, it still feels like it's on those lines. RMC also says I don't think Sam will ever take the juice. We'll see. Maybe it's a suit. And maybe he gets tech. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point he gets an upgrade from Wakanda, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or maybe something happens and we see a Wakanda cameo.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't think in that final fight it's going to be him and Ramirez, him and the new Falcon. I think there's going to be another person showing up, and I think it's going to be a Hulk, whether that's She-Hulk or Banner's Hulk. I don't know, but I think we're going to get a Hulk to help him out.
Yeah.
Like, I would not be surprised if we get She-Hulk in this film.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to definitely get some more Hulks, right? Like, we've got to have probably some more Gamma monsters or something. But this movie, I think they've only given us like the tip of the iceberg. I think we've got to see more. I've seen that rumor online that Bruce Banner / Hulk is going to be in this movie. I feel like they almost have to put him in it, in my opinion.
I don't think they actually need Bruce though, because 1 second. Let me get to his comment here about the whole juicing thing. RMC also says he told Zemo he never would, and Zemo believed him. So, but back to the Hulk. Here's what I think of She-Hulk. One, I think you need to expose She-Hulk more if she's gonna have any more going forward in the MCU. Is one. Two, in the trailer he does get in trouble, right? And it looks like they get everything taken away. He needs a lawyer probably. He could call her. Maybe he does call Banner, and Banner's like, "Hey, I got my, I know someone you can call," and he calls Walters.
Yeah, but she's like a superhero lawyer, particularly.
What is he though?
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, like, that's. So I mean, I guess it kind of works, but
yeah. And then in that final fight scene, she could be in DC, there to help him get out or something like that. And then when that fight scene happens, all of a sudden she hulks out and she could help him. I think that'd be a good idea to have She-Hulk there versus having Banner.
Yeah. See, I feel like, and going back to RMC's comment about like, he would probably never get juiced up. I'll just throw this in there. I think with Steve, one of the big things of why he was chosen to have the serum, obviously, was because it amplifies the good or the bad.
His
like,
heart,
you're a good man, you're a bad man, it makes you worse. That's why Red Skull became that way. That's why Steve Rogers became that way. Obviously, we saw with John Walker, he went from being a pain of a person to deal with to becoming just uncontrollable at times with the serum, and it's because he's a good soldier, he's just not the best man at times,
Dime store Captain America.
Yeah, so it's like, I love John Walker, I love that character, I loved him in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I hope after Thunderbolts we see more of him and he doesn't get killed by the Sentry. But yeah, I mean, I think with Sam, we're probably going to have one of those moments where it's like somebody finally makes him believe that the reason Steve chose him to have the shield is because he's a good man.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why he can take the serum, is because it's going to amplify him and all his good traits and not make him a bad man. He's not going to be power hungry.
I just wonder where he's going to get the serum from. Like, does he get injured? There's a couple ways they could do it, right? I wonder... Like, again, his suits are tied to Wakanda still. I know he's not Wakandan, he hasn't a blood, that kind of stuff, but could he get the synthetic herb as an option?
Maybe. I mean, I would like to think that maybe he gets you got to think that I think John Walker, I think Alexei, the Red Guardian, I think Bucky, Probably all three of them were probably like they probably got some sort of DNA and made the serum that they used to make Bob Reynolds into the Century, right? So I would assume that there's probably somebody that's got a version of the serum out there floating around somewhere.
Or whatever, or whatever Stearns learned from the Hulk. Remember, because remember he got the serum that no. So the stuff that finally got what's his name over the edge?
Abomination.
Abomination. I can't remember his real name.
Yeah.
Yeah, over the edge.
Blonsky.
Yeah, Blonsky over the edge was whatever Samuel Stearns was doing with Hulk's blood and the samples he sent them and all that kind of stuff. So I almost wonder if that could be another version of Super Soldier Serum that he could perfected, possibly too. So we have a couple ways that we could get that in this film.
I mean, you got to think too. Like they probably would just pull the blood of one of these super soldiers and then try and isolate the serum in their blood and then try and replicate it, and then they could just give Sam that or something. But who knows? I mean, I feel like, you know, this movie is going to be so great kind of moving forward because it's kind of picking up on that Hulk movie, like you mentioned, where it's like Abomination took the super soldier serum and Gamma, and that's like they were both attempts to try and make a super soldier. So this is kind of like
which it worked though.
One's better. Yeah, exactly. Like so it's like we're going to end up with some Hulks and we're going to end up with some super soldiers, probably like, you know, really in Thunderbolts, but maybe with Sam being one. And this is going to be one of those things where it's like, I feel like Sam's going to be like, can I take down a Hulk without the super soldier serum, you know, like kind of type of thing. So.
And Ross makes a good point too, or I'm sorry, RMC makes a good point too about Ross saying Ross could have it because Ross did have the one to get the Blonsky as well. And then Blonsky then further went and took it further with the blood of Hulk and the Gamma stuff. My other question too is there's a funeral scene in the trailer. Whose funeral is that? Is that Captain America's funeral? Or I'm sorry, not Steve Rogers' funeral? Because it's not Ross's, because Ross, you know, is the whole way down. And if they have a big funeral like that, it's got to be someone important. So is that Rogers' funeral, or whose funeral could it be?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Or is it the funeral of the current president, and that's how Ross becomes president? I don't know. So it'd be interesting to see whose funeral that is, because...
Yeah, I mean, we did have that other president that was president in Secret
Invasion. Yep.
So maybe Ross was his VP or something, and, you know, just slid on up or something. Who knows?
Yeah, so I wonder whose funeral that was. So, yep, that's all I got.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about a lot tonight. So.
Yeah, I got to eat dinner. I'm hungry. I got to get up. So, all right, now we're done. So bonus time is over. Thank you, RMC. Thank you, Jenny, for joining us today. We will be back next week to talk about Venom: The Last Dance. So everyone have a good week. Have a good evening. We'll talk to you next week.
See ya.